Brexit fishing chaos, Boris Johnson to receive a kicking from furious fishermen. Brexit trade talks could end with Prime Minister Boris Johnson receiving a kicking from fishermen as many rage at his deal with the EU. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced that the UK and the EU have reached a fair deal after months of haggling. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is also set to make an announcement today, just days before the transition periods end on January 1st. For months, disagreements surrounding a level playing field, state aid and fisheries have frustrated negotiators and held up a deal. Despite the fishing industry representing just 0.1% of the UK economy, it has become a symbolic issue given Brexiteers' calls for more sovereignty outside of the EU. The Scottish Fishermen's Federation (SFF) released a statement this week branding the deal derisory for fishermen in the UK, signalling the Prime Minister could be headed for a fisheries backlash. SFF Chief Executive Elspeth MacDonald said, "If any of these offers are accurate, then in terms of percentages and length of the transition period, they are utterly derisory and totally unacceptable to the Scottish fishing fleet." Repatriating only 35% of the EU's landings to the UK phased in over a period of several years would be a terrible deal for the fishing industry. You cannot have sovereign control over your fishing waters with one hand tied behind your back. This is not what we were promised, and only last week the Prime Minister made the same point at Prime Minister's questions. Joe Barnes, the Daily Express Brussels correspondent, reported that Mr. Johnson accepted that the EU hands back 25% of the value of fish it catches in British waters over a 5.5-year transition period. The UK had initially demanded that the EU hand back 35% according to reports, signalling a concession late on. Barry Dess of the National Federation of Fishermen's Organisations had already warned Mr. Johnson that he would receive a kicking if he folded in talks with the EU. He said in September, "I think the government would find it very difficult politically amongst its own supporters, never mind the kicking it would get in the press and from the fishing industry, if it came back with a poor deal." Some figures in Europe have claimed that Mr. Johnson caved at the 11th hour in order to secure a trade deal. A French official said, "The British have made huge concessions in the negotiations in the past 48 hours." Another key issue that has led to deadlock in talks is state aid.